Check this.
Hello, this is Socially Triggered, and this video is going to be about postmodernism. I'm going to try to explain it, and hopefully I'll explain it so that you can understand it and get the feeling for it. What is postmodernism? According to Wikipedia, postmodernism is the broad movement that was developed mid to late 20th century that crosses philosophy, the arts, architecture, and criticism that is a marked departure from modernism. Okay, so then you're asking, well, what's modernism? Well, modernism believes in the power of the people to improve or reshape their environment with the aid of practical experimentation, scientific knowledge, or technology. Modernism believes in the concept of discovering truth, that there is an objective truth. So in contrast, postmodernism rejects these thoughts. For postmodernists, there is no objective truth, and the world is more subjective. For postmodernists, there is no absolute truth. They believe that there's an infinite possible number of solutions to any problem. A good example that illustrates the difference between modernism and postmodernism is how we each view gender. For the modernist, they would see that there's only men and women. And they would seek to understand the characteristics of each gender via a scientific lens. The postmodernist would say that there's an infinite number of genders because each would be based on a subjective experience. The person's own feelings about their gender would be what that gender would be. There would be no scientific gender. There'd just be whatever we subjectively feel about our gender. So each person would have their own gender that would fit their feelings about it. The difference is really facts versus feelings. Modernists believe in discovering facts and truths, and postmodernists believe more in feelings and subjective truths. It feels true is a common postmodernist expression. Whereas the modernists would quote statistics and scientific facts. When reality itself is defined by your feelings, then your feelings become sacred. This is why for postmodernists, hurt feelings is one of the worst crimes that can be committed. For example, a good example of how this plays out is is what happened with Jordan Peterson, the debate that made him rise to fame. He rejected the concept of compelled speech. He didn't believe that he should be forced to arbitrarily use whatever gender pronouns the person might request of him based on legislation. He didn't mind that concept of maybe negotiating speech, like saying, hey, what do you want to be referred to as? But he didn't like the idea of the government legislating that he had to use the specific pronouns of that person. That was his issue. However, for the postmodernists, what he was doing was ignoring their subjective reality. And by doing so, he was questioning their existence, because existence and subjective reality are the same thing. So for the postmodernists, he was basically denying their very existence. So really, it is just that hurt feelings, but for postmodernists, it's much more than that. This leads to the next component of what postmodernists believe. For postmodernists, they believe that all interactions are defined by systems of power. That there are oppressors and there's the oppressed. Examples of this would be men versus women, capitalists versus workers, white people versus minorities, able versus disabled, colonialists versus the colonized. For the postmodernists, the goal would be to fight against these systems of oppression and to fight for the rights of the oppressed. This is where social justice comes from. The belief that justice can't be achieved until the systems of power are removed from it. The goal for the postmodernists would be to achieve absolute equality within society. Anything that shows inequality would illustrate that there is an imbalance and social injustice. A good example of this is the typical story of a black criminal. For postmodernists, a black person is a minority and is oppressed by society just because they are black. They're automatically oppressed. If they're black, they're oppressed because they're a minority. There's no nuance there. It's just the way they would think. So it doesn't matter that they committed a crime because the facts are not important, because those facts suggest objective truth. Those don't matter. It's the subjective feeling that matters. So if it feels like racism, then it must be racism. There must have been some racism that caused this person to be a victim. That they must have, as a black person, they can't be truly a criminal because, well, they're oppressed by society. This is why those who reject postmodernism and the postmodernists can never see eye to eye, because postmodernists can't be swayed by facts, because only feelings form reality. They will also see everything as a power struggle. So arguing with them, they'll see you as an oppressor, and they'll say, well, you're literally Hitler, which is another postmodernist popular saying. I hope you enjoyed this video. It has been a really quick attempt for me to give a brief introduction into postmodernism. The major takeaways are that they believe that there are no objective truths. So facts don't matter. That all interactions follow a power dynamic and of conflict between oppressors and oppressed. The goal of the postmodernists is to seek social justice, which means destroying the oppressors and the systems of power. The last part is crucial to understand because the implications of it are very scary. For example, men are seen as oppressors. Well, then maleness needs to be destroyed and femininity needs to be promoted. This is seen when we hear things like toxic masculinity, manspreading, the patriarchy, the rape culture, the Me Too movement, the wage gap, and how our society would be just much better off if there wasn't this problem with maleness and we could just fix the problem with men. So there's much more I could say on the topic of postmodernism. Please feel free to continue the conversation about postmodernism in the comments below. And please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Check this.